Okay, 14.3 in Discovery Education, Egyptian Innovations and Contributions. We start on Explore, page 1. We are looking for the definitions to coal, stylus, cubit, cultural diffusion, and we are looking to answer, why is King Tut famous? Let's find out. Page 1. King Tutankhamun's tomb. That's King Tut for short. What do the contents of King Tutankhamun, King Tut, what do the contents of King Tutankhamun's tomb tell us about life in ancient Egypt? The pharaoh Tutankhamun died around 1323 BCE at the age of 19. His reign as pharaoh lasted less than 10 years. Why, then, is this boy king so well known? Tutankhamun is best known for the treasures found in his tomb and what they have taught us about life in ancient Egypt. Most of the Egyptian tombs archaeologists find have been broken into by grave robbers who have stolen most of the contents of the tombs. But the entrance to Tutankhamun's tomb remained hidden for centuries. When British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered Tutankhamun's tomb in 1923, everything was still inside. As my eyes grew accustomed to the light, details of the room within emerged slowly from the mist. Strange animals, statues, and gold. Everywhere, the glint of gold. Howard Carter, The Tomb of Tutankhamun. The tomb held gold, silver, jewelry, and statues of finely carved alabaster. There were chariots and barges for the pharaoh to use on trips during the afterlife. There were bottles filled with perfumes and chests filled with clothing and food. There were games to keep the king entertained. Tweezers, razors, toothbrushes, and cosmetics showed how Egyptians groomed themselves. Boxes were filled with the medicinal plants and magical charms believed to have healing powers. The walls were painted with scenes of the pharaoh enjoying his new life in the underworld. Tutankhamun's tomb and the artifacts within were a significant archaeological find. The artifacts in the tomb provided hints as to what life in ancient Egypt was like. The games and personal items the archaeologists found provided insights into the culture and daily habits of Egyptians. Historians obtained an understanding of Egyptians' technical skill and scientific knowledge from items such as boats and medicinal plants. Egyptians believed that when they died, they went to an afterlife that was similar to their life on earth. They believed they would still need material goods, such as food and clothing, so they filled their tombs with everything they would need. The items inside the tomb have provided historians with insights into Egyptians' art and culture, technological and scientific knowledge, and day-to-day habits. So why is King Tut famous? Well, Tutankhamun is best known for, aka famous, the treasures found in his tomb and what they have taught us about life in ancient Egypt. So talk about what was found in his tomb and why it was found in his tomb and not other people's tombs. Page 2, the arts and crafts of ancient Egypt. So we're looking for what did the Egyptians believe about illness? We're also still looking for coal, stylus, cubit, and cultural diffusion. Howard Carter was not the only archaeologist to find amazing art and artifacts inside the tomb of the pharaoh. Much of the early art of an ancient Egypt was created within tombs. Their murals, or wall paintings, showed daily activities, historical events, and afterlife scenes of the individual buried in the tomb. The main purpose of the tomb murals was to express important values and beliefs. For this reason, the paintings, while carefully executed, did not focus on realism. Instead, they showed an ideal world. In paintings of individuals, artists showed not what they saw, but what they knew to be there. Faces were shown in profile, but both eyes could be seen. Bodies were shown from the front, making both arms and both legs visible. Finally, artists used scale to show social standing and importance. They depicted the pharaoh as larger than his servants. So basically, even though they stood sideways, you could still see all legs and arms and both sets of eyes. And a pharaoh would look much larger than a normal person in a painting, even if they were short. Like the surviving paintings of ancient Egypt, most of the sculptures archaeologists have found were in tombs or monuments honoring rulers. Unlike the paintings, these royal sculptures achieved a high degree of realism. Egyptian sculptures and carvings of ordinary people and animals were also lifelike. This realism in sculpture can be seen in the works of later civilizations as well. Egyptian craftspeople also created beautiful jewelry. Egyptian men and women wore a lot of jewelry. They turned gold and silver into necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. They also used makeup similar to today's cosmetics. They applied rouge and blush to their cheeks, favored bright red lipstick, and used thick eyeliner called kohl. So we found kohl. We click here to find out what it is. They ground up a stone called malachite to make green eyeshadow. They probably did not realize it, but the malachite helped protect their eyes from damage from the sun. Women were responsible for household chores, which included the making of clothing, jewelry, and makeup. Okay, so we found kohl for that one. We're still looking for what did Egyptians believe about illness. Page 3, Egyptian mythology. How did the religion and mythology of ancient Egypt influence other cultures? The Egyptians believed in many gods. The gods controlled almost every aspect of life. Hundreds of years later, the Greeks and Romans changed the names of some of the gods and adopted them into their own cultures. One of the Egyptian deities was Mat. She was the goddess of truth and justice. The Egyptians believed that when they died, Mat would decide if they had lived a good life by weighing their hearts on a scale. If they had, they would be admitted to an afterlife similar to the paradise or heaven described in other religions. If they did not, they could be cast out into nothingness. Mat was depicted with scales similar to those carried by Lady Justice, the modern-day symbol of justice. Ancient Egyptians considered the pharaoh a god. His most important job as ruler was to maintain good relations with the other Egyptian deities or gods, to protect and provide for his subjects. This developed into the idea of the divine right of kings in Europe, who claimed their powers came from God and that they were not responsible to any earthly authority. All right, still nothing here about illness or medicine. Medical discoveries, page 4. This should help. So we're still looking for stylus, cubit, cultural diffusion. No, we should probably put page 2, and we should probably put page 1. What did the Egyptians know about medicine? Like many early civilizations, ancient Egyptians believed that illness was caused by evil spirits. They often used rituals to try to cure the sick. But Egyptian doctors also used herbal remedies and scientific treatments to treat specific symptoms. So this looks like we are getting the information here that we need to answer what did the Egyptians believe about illness. They used medicinal plants and herbs, made people drink teas made with insect parts, and rubbed animal dung on wounds. Doctors used a lot of trial and error when treating patients. They slowly learned which methods worked and which did not. The doctors kept careful records of what they tried and what worked. Some doctors were also surgeons. They specialized in treating eyes and stomach disease. Because Egypt is in a desert, the food had a lot of sand in it. That meant many Egyptians had very poor teeth. So there were also doctors who specialized in treating teeth. Egyptian doctors used their skills on the living and the dead. Doctors mummified bodies, preserving them for the afterlife. To do this, they needed to remove the heart, lungs, kidney, and brain. For this reason, the physician's knowledge of anatomy, the inside of the human body, was very good. The drawings Egyptian physicians made are as detailed and accurate as those in some modern-day medical textbooks. Recent x-rays of some mummies show that ancient Egyptian doctors set broken bones as well as doctors in modern emergency rooms. Because of their knowledge and skill, Egyptian physicians were highly respected. Pharaohs sometimes sent their doctors to treat important members of friendly nations. Egyptian doctors were sent to teach in Greece and other places around the Mediterranean Sea. So, what did Egyptians believe about illness? You'll find that here. What did the Egyptians know about medicine? You'll find that here. And why was their knowledge of anatomy so good? You'll find that in here. So all of these are on page 4. Now we're looking for what form of writing did the Egyptians create, what effect did it have, and we are still looking to define stylus, cubit, and cultural diffusion. Page 5, the architecture of the pyramids. How did the pyramids influence architecture? The pyramids are the best known symbols of ancient Egypt. Architects, draftspeople, and contractors invented the solutions to difficult problems they encountered while building the pyramids. They created the square base as the foundation of the pyramids, developed an understanding of angles, and created a basic system of measurement. These ancient Egyptian techniques have been used for every building project since then, from adding a deck to a house to constructing a skyscraper. Some of their methods remain a mystery, even today. The famous pyramids of Giza had outer casings made of limestone, but over the years, robbers and treasure hunters have stripped this away. One of the pyramids, known as the Great Pyramid, has an inner core made of limestone, and its interior burial chamber is made of granite. Its entrance is about 5'9" above ground and leads to a corridor inside that descends. Its entrance is about 59 feet above ground and leads to a corridor inside that descends into an underground chamber. Another passage goes upward to the Queen's chamber and a gallery. Another passage leads from this room to the King's chamber. The pyramid also contains narrow shafts that might have been used for religious purposes or ventilation. The Egyptians made their pyramids, temples, and public buildings on a very large scale. To build these enormous structures, Egyptian leaders created an economic system that required ordinary Egyptian citizens to work on government projects. These citizens would live in workers' villages and be paid by the government for their labor. The ancient government projects are an early form of a command economy, or an economic system controlled by the government. The planning and management of these projects was a difficult task. The effort put into the projects by ancient Egyptians showed how important these structures and the rituals and proceedings that occurred there were to the ancient Egyptians. Large open areas usually surrounded the buildings. The buildings were used for public meetings, ceremonies, and festivals. Today, many government buildings, civic centers, and important places of worship are designed in a similar style. For page 6, we are still looking for stylus, cubit, and cultural information, or cultural diffusion, and what form of writing did the Egyptians create? What effect did it have? Reading and writing in ancient Egypt. Which Egyptian innovations changed the way people communicate? Early civilizations had no form of written language. Everything was spoken. There was no way to post laws, write directions, or record sales. The Egyptians began using pictures as a form of writing. Each picture represented an idea or a word. For example, a picture of a vulture was the symbol for the word mother. These are called logograms. Logo is the Greek word for word, and gram is the Greek word for sign. Other pictures were used to represent a sound. A lion represented the sound These are called phonograms. Phono is the Greek word for sound. Using the logograms and phonograms together, the Egyptians created hieroglyphics, a form of writing. The word hieroglyphics means sacred carving. The hieroglyphics allowed Egyptians to track their business transactions, praise their rulers, and record their history. So that will help with what form of writing did Egyptians create and what effect did it have. You have that information right here. On page 6.